It is a great pleasure for all of us at NHK to have Dr. Takashi Kitamura as our guest today. Welcome, Dr. Kitamura.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Now, you recently returned from the World AIDS Conference. How was this year's conference in Geneva different from those in years past?
Yes, that is the 12th World AIDS Conference. And formerly it was called the International Conference on AIDS, but this time it will change the World AIDS Conference. And also the contents of the conference have changed. It has incorporated social programs to bridge the scientific achievement to the control of AIDS pandemic in developing countries.
Now, I suppose that most of the AIDS problem is in the developing countries.
Yes. Now, the number of HIV-infected people globally estimated to be 32 million. And more than 90% is living in developing countries, 90%. Mostly in Asia and Africa.
I see, so that's where most of the problem is. And what about the cost of controlling the problem?
The cost is very enormous. And thanks to the scientific achievement, there are many effective drugs to control the virus disease. And it costs more than $50,000. We incorporate the cost of care and the fewer cost of drugs. But in developing countries, annual budget per capita may be less than $100. So it's impossible to bridge the gap between developing countries and developed countries. Even though we have many available resources to treat the patients.
Well, were there any interesting clinical findings announced this year?
The most wonderful achievement may be the prevention of mother-to-child transmission of HIV. In the United States, it is established that the treatment of AZT, the most original antiretroviral medicine used in the United States. And it is when it is given at the latest stage of pregnancy and at the earliest stage of the newborn after delivery, it could reduce the transmission rate less than 1/3 of the untreated cases.
I see. Now, you just mentioned this AZT treatment for mother-to-child infection. Could you explain what that is exactly?
AZT is the simplified name of the azithromycin. That medicine works to reduce, to inhibit the virus-specific enzyme to suppress the replication of HIV. It is a clinical effect. And after AZT, there are so many medicines which have been demonstrated to be effective in clinical cases.
Now, are there any sort of side effects? I suppose it's sort of dangerous.
Yeah, as you know, AZT is the DNA synthesis inhibitor. So it had the adverse effects to the genetic material. One used to say indiscriminately. But in the case of prevention of mother-to-child transmission, despite the careful surveillance of the effect of more than 300 cases administered, mothers and children, there was no adverse effects so far observed for more than 4 years.
That's very hopeful.
Good.
Is that a very costly treatment?
Yes, it may cost more than $3,000
that's difficult for the developing countries.
So now the international community is thinking there is no any other simplified or less expensive procedure. So in Thailand, it is tested by cooperation by government and the United States Communicable Disease Center, the former Communicable Disease, now the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and reduced dosage of AZT and shorter period administration and omission of the treatment of the baby after delivery. But even with this simplified procedure, there was more than 50% reduction of transmission rate. So it may be a rather practical method for the European countries, and it was rejoiced in the meeting by the report.
Yes. Yeah. Very good news. Was there any mention made of a discovery of a cure or vaccine at all?
There was not so good news. There was a good news with multiple number of effective therapeutics, but its limit has been also demonstrated by the careful or sensitive assay or virus remaining in the body. There was the finding that even after to say energetic treatment and very effective the healing of the case, the persistence of the small amount of virus and infected cells has been demonstrated. So once we stop or discontinue the treatment, the virus will recover its growth.
So I guess prevention.
We must support the life of the patients by continuing the very expensive to say chemotherapy. That is the problem.
I guess they should concentrate on prevention.
Yeah.
And are there any tests being carried out in Japan right now?
Well, the Japanese clinics are energetically working the new ideas, vaccine development, including the recombinant BCG. The BCG is the tuberculosis vaccine strain, and it grows in the body and also induces a very strong immune reaction. And my colleague, Dr. Honda, developed a recombinant BCG, which can express also the HIV protein, so giving the immunity against tuberculosis and also to AIDS. And it was very effective with small animals like mouse, and guinea pigs. And also his experiment where the monkeys was successful. So we are now negotiating the human trial in Thailand and in Japan in parallel with animal experimentation. And it is also much interested. The American colleagues are also interested in this approach.
Is there any hope for the Japanese approach to the problem? Do you think it will be successful?
And we have also another approach, that is the so-called topical microbicide to be given into the vaginal cavity of the female. We can give it into the vaginal cavity before and after sexual contact. And the problem is most the effective and safe drug may be hoped. And recently we reported in this conference our demonstration of effective killing of HIV in the test tubes by the vaginal clean product, which is safely used for the obstetricians for the prevention of bacterial infections. So we have proposed to United Nations a special program on AIDS to make some field tests in AIDS pandemic areas like Africa and Southeast Asia, and they are also interested in that approach.
Now, what measures do you expect will be taken to deal with AIDS in the future?
Yes. So far, we have no effective preventive vaccine. So we have to avoid the exposure to AIDS virus. That is the most effective way is the education to avoid the exposure by sexual behaviors. The next one, the to prevent physically by condom at the sexual contact. So the most basic one may be the earliest sexual education to avoid unsafe sexual behaviors. So the idealistically, the avoidance of sexual experience younger may be most effective, and it is incorporated in the educational system. I guess in the United States, especially in New York City.
Yes.
And the second one is physical barrier system like condom. And also the important one is safety of blood supply in developing countries. As you know, in the United States and European countries and in Japan, the blood supply is based on the voluntary donation of the without payment. But in most developing countries, blood supply is based upon the habitual blood seller donation on the payment. They have the possibility to have so many blood-borne viruses like hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and HIV. And also the screening system is not so complete. So we have to support their development of the screening system.
Well, maybe some of the developing countries can invest in education programs rather than the drugs themselves.
That's right. It is most effective and most economical means.
Are drugs a problem in any way?
Well, drug injection is discussed in many Western countries, but quite fortunately, in Japan, drug injection is not so the problem. So the Japanese government is not so much interested, but we have to be prepared to make the warnings of the danger of drug injection.
Well, speaking of Japan, what is Japan's role in the fight against AIDS, and how is Japan dealing with the problem right now?
Well, maybe the international cooperation. Fortunately, Japan has not so much great number of infected population, but the research activity is very active, and research achievement is good. So, first we have made the cooperation with the United States as a part of the U.S.-Japan Cooperative Medical Science Program. And we have established the AIDS panel 10 years before, and we have had more than 10 years of joint activity. So,
conferences.
Now we are focusing on the vaccine development and also the clinical tests of the newly developed therapeutics. The Japan side could develop a very effective new protease inhibitor, now being used in the United States for the clinical trials. And also, as I have mentioned before, our colleagues have developed many hopeful vaccine candidates. So, the first international cooperation is a research cooperation. The second one is done by many colleagues in Japan for the training of doctors and nurses in the developing countries, especially in Southeast Asia, how to diagnose and to treat and to ensure the safety of blood in the medical field. It is done by the organization of Japan International Cooperation Agency, abbreviated as the JICA.
Yes.
And we organize a training course on the request of JICA. And there are several times, and more than 100 doctors and nurses have already finished the training courses.
So these are all government-organized activities?
Yes, as a part of foreign cooperation.
I see. And now you have been following the World AIDS Conferences over the last 13 years. In your opinion, what is the significance of these conferences?
Yeah, originally the conference organized by our colleagues and by myself, the joint meeting of scientific field. As you know, the AIDS research is widespread among biology and immunology and pathology and many aspects of clinical medicine like obstetrics, gynecology, and otorhinolaryngology, and internal medicine and surgery and other. And all to join all research workers at the same place and join in the common progress and common problems to control the HIV infection. It was very effective in scientific the field. But now it is complained that despite the great achievements of research, the people in developing countries cannot enjoy its fruits. Because of the social and political conditions. So we have to bridge that gap. That was appointed 2 years ago at the Vancouver conference. And now it is established in Geneva, and that two program committees, one scientific program committee, one social program committee, work jointly to combine the achievement of scientific research and social application of it.
So they will combine. And where will this conference be held next?
Yes, so on that trend, we, the governing council member of the International AIDS Society, discussed any city in the Africa should be designated as a venue. And we selected candidate cities, but this conference requires many halls and exhibition facilities, and to accept the participants more than 30,000. So the only Durban was accepted as a candidate. And the organizing committee in Durban is now preparing to accept. But from Japan, it is so far away, and travel costs may be very enormous. So I'm afraid in that social aspect of the difficulty.
Well, I wish you all the best of luck with your research and in the fight against AIDS.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.